I didn't even realize that it was possible to not be a woman, let alone have a gender that shifts and changes. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zoe Stoller. For those of you who don't know me, my pronouns are she, they, and you can find me at Zoe Stoller on all social media platforms. And today, I will be telling the story of my second coming out, which was only about a year ago when I came out as gender fluid towards the beginning of the pandemic around April 2020, I believe. But it's actually a fun story because I realized that I was gender fluid about 6 months prior to that, but I actually started getting hints of my gender fluidity, which I pushed deep down about 3 years prior to that, a few months after I had come out as a lesbian. So I'm gonna link my coming out as a lesbian story in whichever corner it goes to. So if you haven't seen that story, you can definitely check that out. But just a quick recap, I came out as a lesbian in 2016 when I was 20 years old. I believed myself to be a cis woman, so the word lesbian made sense. I mean, I still love the word lesbian, but I've now luckily realized that there is more to my identity than just being a lesbian woman. And I first started getting hints of this in about February 2017, so several months after I came out as a lesbian. I woke up one day and I suddenly felt this strong feeling that I was not a woman. I knew that the word woman did not fit with me, but I did not know which word did fit with me. And it was really scary because this is the first time that I had kind of noticed this. And now that I know who I am, I'm sure that I had experienced this fluidity in gender many times throughout my life, and I can, you know, pinpoint some times in my childhood when I was really uncomfortable with my sex assigned at birth, which was female, and the ways that, you know, women are socialized in this world. I was very uncomfortable with a lot of elements of it, but I didn't realize that this meant that I wasn't a woman. I didn't even realize that it was possible to not be a woman, let alone have a gender that shifts and changes, because the real confusion in my life came when, after about a week of feeling like I was not a woman and knowing that so strongly, but still not knowing like which language would describe me best, I suddenly woke up again. And I was like, oh wait, I am a woman actually. I feel very connected to this label. I love she, her pronouns. The lesbian label feels right to me. Everything feels right. So I guess I was making up that past week. I guess that's what I thought, at least. I thought that I literally just like made it up or like had misunderstood what I was feeling. And so that led me to just like push all of that week of questioning deep down and like not even touch it. But now that I was kind of aware of these shifts in my experience, and I think I became aware of this partially because I had become aware of my sexuality, and I had started to realize that there's more to life and identities and experiences than just what society tells you. I think that's kind of what opened up the door to allow me to realize that, you know, my gender is not just being a cisgender woman. But again, I pushed it deep down because I was scared. I had no idea what was happening. I thought I made things up. And I was also really mostly afraid that if I were not a woman, that I could not be a lesbian. And I love being a lesbian. I loved it back then. I still love it now. Even in the times when I don't feel connected to womanhood, I still love the word lesbian. And I loved the community that I had formed and the sense of identity that I had formed back in 2016 when I first came out. And I was really scared to lose that because I didn't realize that non-binary lesbians are a thing. But of course, we will get all into this later as we continue along my story. But essentially, for the next 2 or 3 years, actually I think it's 3-ish years, I kept having these sudden shifting feelings of connections with my gender. Sometimes I would feel very connected to womanhood, other times I would feel very disconnected from it. That's kind of how I understood these shifts. But again, I was scared and confused, and I felt these shifts happening in my gender every so often, particularly in moments when people like grouped me into, you know, being in a group of women, or like using the women's bathrooms or things like that. Like in those moments when I wasn't feeling like a woman, I could acutely recognize that something was not right. There was some kind of disconnect, but again, I didn't know what was happening until about fall 2019, only a little bit before the pandemic happened. Obviously, we had no idea what was coming for us, but fall 2019, I felt so confused and so afraid of my own identity that I realized that I had to figure out what was happening, because I did not want to be an inauthentic version of myself. I didn't want to not understand myself, and I didn't like not being able to articulate my identities and explain kind of like what was happening within me, why things kept shifting, and why sometimes I felt really connected to womanhood and then sometimes not at all. because I'm a writer, I'm a language person, and not being able to ascribe language to my own identity, that messed me up. So I decided it was becoming too painful to kind of keep this thing inside of me and not know this part of myself. So I decided to do some research, and at first I was Googling, you know, if you feel like a woman sometimes but not all the time, like what does that mean? And I didn't really get any specific answers from that. I'm sure if you've been questioning your identity and you've done some Google searches, they're like really not that helpful, which is part of the reason why I share so much educational content about the LGBTQ community now, because in my own experience, just simply Googling and trying to find the answer was like really confusing. But eventually I made my way to social media, specifically YouTube, because the websites that I found from Google weren't really giving me any specific answers. So I thought maybe hearing people talk about their specific experiences could help me understand what my experience is. So I started doing some simple YouTube searches like non-binary, transgender, LGBTQ, just gender questioning, all these different things and these different terms that I had kind of started to pick up on. And I was able to get some incredible knowledge from YouTube, which again is part of the reason why I create my content today on social media, because there's just a treasure trove of knowledge here and of experiences that can be shared and normalized. And it was such a relief being able to watch YouTube videos from people like Ash Hardell and other trans LGBTQ creators who could talk about their experience of questioning and transitioning or not, and just discovering who they are, which is what I so desperately wanted for myself. So from their educational content and so many other amazing LGBTQ YouTubers and content creators on Instagram and TikTok, I was eventually able to find the word gender fluid. And I had kind of heard this word before, specifically when Miley Cyrus had come out as gender fluid, I think back in like 2015, but I don't think when I heard the word I really fully understood what it meant, especially within my own context. But as soon as I heard the word being described and heard creators talking about their own experiences with a shifting gender, I was like, wait, that's me. There was an instant light bulb, a connection, and I knew that that word was for me, but I was still scared because, again, I didn't know if I could be gender fluid and a lesbian. I didn't know if I was trans because I was gender fluid. I just really didn't understand kind of these things about myself. So this was fall 2019, and as I said in the beginning, I didn't come out till April 2020, and that's because for the next 6 months, I can't do math, so it could very well be 6 months, but let me know in the comments like how many months it is, like November-ish to April-ish, I don't know. Anyway, for the however many months that was, I still felt confused because I knew that I had this word that describes me, but I didn't know how the larger community would take it. I didn't know how it fit into my own sexuality. I didn't know if it would confuse people or what this meant for me. And so I took my time kind of figuring it out, and I opened up to a few friends, to my therapist, just to let them know what was happening. And at first I wasn't really going to come out to the larger public because I felt like maybe this isn't something that's necessary to know. Gender is a very personal thing, and I don't really have plans to physically transition in any way, i.e. go on hormones or have surgery. I'm not shutting those things off from my life, but I'm not doing them right now, I know. So I thought, you know, there's not going to be any kind of physical evidence of me realizing that I'm actually trans and not cis. So maybe I don't have to tell people. But of course, I eventually realized that, no, I want to tell people who I am. I want people to know the full me. And I've decided that even if people say that I can't be gender fluid and a lesbian, I know that I can be because it's my truth. These are the words that I connect with, and nobody can tell me what my truth is or isn't. So I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna let people know who I am. Also, a big motivator of mine was I really wanted to put my pronouns in my Instagram bio and my other social media bios because that's a really important thing, and I wanted to promote that and normalize that. But since I hadn't come out as gender fluid yet and let people know that I actually want my pronouns to be she, they, not she, her, I was scared to put my actual pronouns in my bio because I didn't want to just like spring that on people without telling them, although I mean you can do that if you want to. And I also didn't want to put she, her in my bio because those are not my pronouns, and I didn't want to put this false version of myself out into the world, you know? I wanted to be real with who I am. So eventually, after a lot of inner turmoil, as you can see, first in discovering my identity and then deciding how this fits into the larger context of who I am and whether I want to share this with people, after all of that, I decided to open up to the world about who I am. So I did this in two main ways. First, I sent a text to my family group chat. I had written out a message explaining that I'm gender fluid and like what that means, and I decided to just send it and like let it go and let everyone in my family know who I was. And then I decided to share a post on Instagram where I came out to the world as non-binary, more specifically gender fluid. So it's very similar kind of to my first coming out as a lesbian, in that I used social media to do it and I kind of let people know all at once. And that was great for me because I have a lot of anxiety and it just didn't feel right for me or make sense for me to kind of like tell every single person individually or have like a whole sit-down conversation with people. That did not feel like a good thing for me. And coming out, as I said in my first video, is all about you and what makes you feel comfortable. So what made me comfortable was sending a group text to my family and then posting a thing on Instagram. And almost immediately after I shared that post, I added my pronouns to my bio, she, they, and really since that moment, I have been living loudly and proudly as a gender fluid lesbian. And it's one of the greatest decisions I could have made to come out and let people know who I am, because it really hurt to hide that part of me. It hurt to not know that part of me and then to hide it and not be able to speak freely about my identities. And now I can, which is such a beautiful thing and makes me feel so happy, especially because I spent so long not sharing about my identities. So there you have it. That is my second coming out, which happened about a year ago in April 2020, where I came out as gender fluid. And I also have another video on my TikTok and soon to be Instagram where I actually read the text that I sent to my family to come out. So if you are curious about what I said to my family to come out, I'm gonna link that video in the description below, and I'm also gonna include the link of the Instagram post where I came out to the general public as gender fluid. So if you're also gender fluid or non-binary or not cis or just not straight, whatever it is, I hope that you feel comfort and pride in your identities, because LGBTQ identities are so wonderful, and I am always so impressed by people who can take the time to really discover who they are and then be their authentic selves in the world, because it is a lot harder than people realize. So wherever you are in the journey of being you and coming out to the world as you, I am right here with you. And I'm so proud of all the progress you have made and all the wonderful things that are in your future. So that is the end of today's video. If you liked it, be sure to give a little thumbs up down below, and also subscribe and click the little notification bell so you can find out when I post my next video. And I will have more coming out videos coming out soon, ha 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 ha, because I do have other LGBTQ identities. I'm also demisexual and demi-romantic, I've realized. And while I haven't had an official coming out of those, I've kind of just started openly sharing about it online without an official like big coming out announcement. I do have stories about how I discovered those parts of myself and felt comfortable enough to share that with the world. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day or night, whatever time it is when you are watching this. Talk to you later.